Hello everybody, it is I, Nintendo Chuck Norris, reviewing a game I've played recently. Fire Emblem Awakening. Now, I played this game a while ago, and I just started to play through it again, so when I would review it. I'm going to review it now. Starting with the case, as you can see on the case, it's a pretty good game. It's got Spot Pass. It's rated T for teen. Because of the fact that it's basically a warfare game. If you played a Fire Emblem game, you understand the basic concept. Develop a strategy, use that strategy, choose weapons, units, strategy, and defeat the enemy army. The story. I'm gonna have to go through different pieces as I play games for story. I had to reanalyze most of the stuff. So let's start with first thing notice, the graphics. They're fantastic. I mean, for a 3DS game, they are the standard, but they are fantastic. The graphics are great. The combat style is innovative. There's a lot of new things, a lot of old things. More in depth with those later on. So, the graphics, I give it a 9.5 out of 10. You have to actually look at some footage to see the graphics, because I don't have any way to record 3DS footage. I don't have a capture card for my 3DS, or anything for that matter. Now we can move on to the gameplay. The gameplay is smooth and polished. There are a whole lot of different things you can do. There are a lot more. There's some new mechanics. There's choose a weapon, and without having to actually select the weapon, you can see how much damage the weapon's going to deal. Whereas in old games, you just select the weapon, didn't like it, you back out and choose a different weapon. And don't like that, back out till you find a weapon that works. And possibly cancel your attack entirely. So this shows you how much damage you'll deal, how many times you hit them, what your crit rate is, what your hit rate is, how many times you hit, if you hit them twice or not, and if you want to look at it in full, in more detail, I'll show you how much health the enemy will have left when you finish your attack, which is great for those who don't want to do math too often. You see how much HP your enemy will have left after you choose to do that attack. What you can do is you can pair two units together, which not only increases the chances of them having a support conversation later, also gives them a nice stat boost if they have support, which is why I always pair Chrom and the Tactician. That's the new thing. This Tactician is the playable character. And he's not super fragile like he was in Fire Emblem 7. And by fragile, I mean he won't die frequently. I'm probably thinking of I'm probably with FE7 hack, but that's something else entirely. Anyway. What it is we can move on to now. The story begins with our protagonist Chrom. Yeah, his name is Chrom. If you played Smash 4, he's making a cameo. Him, his sister Lissa, and his knight Frederick come across Robin, who is the tactician that you play as. His name is Robin. He can be whatever you want to name him. It doesn't really matter too much. Actually, no, it doesn't matter at all. Male or female, doesn't matter. It just affects more conversations. That's it. Anyway, what you can do, what happens is then Of course, Crom and Wissa have no problems with Robin. Frederick is skeptical. That's not too important, but it has relevance later on. So now that you're with, and the problem is you have no memory. The only thing you seem to know is Crom's name. Makes you even more suspicious if you ask me. And Frederick feels the same way about that. But that's normal. If you were found passed out, met someone you haven't actually met and knew their name, that's peculiar. Especially if you have no memory. I can't go more deep with the battle system, as it's hard to explain unless you watch battle system. I'm pretty sure there are videos on YouTube somewhere. You take a look at those if you want to look at the battle system. One thing in particular that I find is really interesting about Final Awakening is you start with 3 difficulties, which is normal. You have normal, which is basically the way the game is meant to be played. Hard for a challenge. Lunatic if you want an even bigger challenge. I put the game on normal to get the story. Hard to see if I could handle it, and then I played through Lunatic. If you're not good at firearm games, don't pick Lunatic. It punishes you severely for every option you make. If you screw up a Lunatic, you're losing a unit. I've always played the Classic. Now that's another thing. There's Classic and Modern when it comes to units. Classic means if a unit falls, you can't use them anymore. Modern means if they fall in the chapter, they'll come back in the next chapter. As powerful as it was when they fell. Normally that doesn't sound... it sounds useful, but if they keep coming back as sucky as they were if they lost because their stats too low, wouldn't that make them less useful as you progress through the game? And so why would you keep using them if they suck? The units I picked, I just picked because I liked them, how their characters were built and made, and I promoted them already. Anyway, as you go through the game, you'll meet more characters. Every chapter introduces a new unit or two. About chapter 1 or 2, you meet another person of importance to the plot, Marth. The name of the person is Marth. And for those who play this game, you probably already know, but it's a dude. At least the game wants you to think it's a dude. As you progress through the game, you'll learn that Marth is here to help. Reach chapter 4, you'll fight Marth. And you'll have to defeat Marth, and you will, because you have to. And anyone can attack and defeat and damage Marth, but you have to defeat Marth with Crom, because otherwise you're not really accomplishing much. Besides, Crom needs the XP. Anyway, moving on from that. Another thing I should point out is that Marth somehow knows what's going to happen next. For some reason, Marth can see the future? This is really confusing. Because that's the only person so far I've met that can see the future. Unless you look more at the certain support conversations. But that's something else entirely. Because it's vague. That's the point. Marth's stuff is spot on and somewhat specific. We don't see Marth in Chapter 5, but we reach Chapter 6 and we see Marth noting how she knew he knew how to get into the castle courtyard by a hole that only Crom and the other shepherds know about. So how does Marth know about it? Don't get me wrong, it's the castle, and it was Marth's castle at one point, but this is not the same Marth. And how does this Marth know about the hole in the wall? Well, it has relevance much later on. You'll figure out how everything falls into place. It seems like it's got several potholes, but they'll answer those questions later. Much later. Dog making noises. Just ignore it. Okay. And you'll see another cutscene before you start chapter 6, where Marth will say to Crom that Marth could save his life. An assassin comes out of the bushes, and Marth slays him. Another one shows up and tries to attack Marth. Marth slowly dies, and Crom defeats the assassin. Now, Marth was wearing a mask at this point, as Marth was the most of the time. As soon as the assassin attacks Marth, the mask gets cut and falls off. Crom sees Marth's face, and this is where this comes into play. First thing Crom says is, "You're a woman?" So yeah, Crom fought a woman and almost got his butt kicked back in chapter 4. So far, Crom's becoming a pretty interesting character. You'll have to understand a little more about the support conversation and how interesting the character Crom really is. Anyway. After that, Marth does say that she is indeed a female, and will now assist you without the mask in chapter 6, and that's it. Marth does show up later on, but you can't actually control Marth until later. And by later, I mean after more things are revealed about this Marth character that we just met back in chapter 1 or 2. I think 1. I'm going to go with 1. 2 is, yeah, chapter 1. Back to chapter 1. After chapter 3, the world map becomes traversable. You can go back and buy weapons if you need to, which I recommend doing. Everyone should upgrade to iron weapons by that point anyway. Moving on. And you can buy these items called Reeking Boxes at the shops on the map. These allow you to bring forth another enemy force, the Risen. You'll be fighting the Pelagians and the Risen for the first half of the game. And the Risen are monsters. And by monsters, I mean they are basically reanimated corpses. And that's it. There's one type of Risen that's not an animated corpse. That's not really a reanimated corpse, but that's neither here nor there. You continue on. We reach chapter, chapters go normal, chapter 7, 8, chapter 9. Chapter 7, the person we met back in chapter 2, Emblem, which I probably should mention back then, is like a sister to Crom and Nissa. So, that's great, but she doesn't fight. She wants to try to avoid a war at all costs, and she does an incredible job. Until the end of chapter 9. Chapter 8, you're marching across the Pelagian border, invading them. Normally this would spark a war, and it kinda does, but you're taking the fight to them, so your people don't have to suffer. I never understood why that is. If you go to war, people are going to suffer regardless. Well, Persia invaded you first, but that's not important. The thing is, you invaded, so you invade them back. Then you reach chapter 9, and now you're like, okay, well, we gotta save Emran. We have to save Emran. Big spoiler here, you can't. You will clear the chapter the way the game wants you to, about to save Emran, and then Deus Ex Machina for the enemies, for the enemy side. Risen appear as if from nowhere, archers even. So the Pegasus Knights you wanted to send to go save Emran, yeah, they can't get off the ground anymore. And not just because they got shot and fell. In case you don't know, arrows beat fires. All forms of fires are weak to arrows. And there are like 5 or 6 archers. Problem is, if Crom moves, Emran dies. If he doesn't wear weapons, Emran dies. If anyone were to do anything other than do nothing and drop the weapons, Emran will die. If they do everything they can, because Emran will die. So you can't avoid it. She dies. But what she does is, instead of getting shot and fall like she would normally die, she walks right off the cliff, gracefully falls to the ground, dead. As she falls, though, Crom rushes as fast as he can toward Emran. Why the enemy ever doesn't do anything is a mystery to me. But Crom is running as fast as he can. But he's too late. By the time he reaches Emran, she's on the ground, dead. And you can't save her. There is no way you can. The game will prompt you. Sacrifice Emran? Yes or no. This option does not affect the story. Picking no, Emran dies. Picking yes, Crom disagrees and Emran dies. So there isn't really much of an option. It has no bearing on the story whatsoever. After Emran dies, Crom wants to take out the king. Unfortunately, due to another character we met a while, Basilio and Flavia, who are from Ragnarok, have secured an escape route that Crom now must take if he plans on, living. Yeah. So, then we move on to chapter 10 where you're escaping. This chapter, chapter 10, is the chapter. Not the CF chapter, that's something else entirely. I can't recall what chapter number that is. I should have wrote down a whole bunch of stuff about the second half of the game because it's harder to remember that half than the first half. First half's important and iconic. So I'm going to go to the first half, so I'll spoil the second half for you. Now chapter 10. The music. The mood. The setting. It's raining. The heavens are crying over the death of Emran. The music is phenomenal. Want to hear the music? Look up Don't Speak Her Name from the soundtrack. From the official soundtrack from Awakening. The song Don't Speak Her Name is phenomenal. It plays as you fight your way through the enemy army as it's raining. If you read all the dialogue that happens, every single soldier, not a single one wants to fight. But they must. Either way, they'll die. But they don't want to fight. But they must. After all that work to try to save Emran and you failed, This chapter will hit you in the heart if you attach to any of the characters at all. Any of the important characters, anyway. So, the exiled Emran dies. Crom's pissed. Whissa's stricken with grief. Enemies don't want to fight. Crom's pissed. Mention Crom's pissed. That's important. After chapter 10, you reach chapter 11. Now, you can go straight for the king. Kind of moves up from we're escaping to we're taking out the Pelgian king. Emran's dead. He no longer has any bargaining tools. Now is the time to reach and slay the king. This chapter is not difficult. This chapter will test you, though. Make sure you've got good weapons. Make sure your weapons are refreshed, as there are a large chunk of enemies in chapter 11. Cross the map, slay the king, and the first arc of the game is over. However, that doesn't change the fact that the game isn't over yet. Our protagonist hasn't recovered, our tactician hasn't recovered his or her memory. Robin hasn't recovered his or her memory. So, that's basically our arc now. Yeah. A few more chapters in, you reach Pelgian again. This time they're neutral, as are you, at this current moment. There's another country, but I'll get more into that later on. And you reach Pelgian, and you talk to the new Pelgian ruler, who you've met before, who knows more about Robin than anyone else. And here's another spoiler here. There are 2 Robins. Yeah. There are 2 of them. I'll explain why there are 2 of them later on. Also, at this point, Crom's gotten married to whoever had the highest support, or a generic female, which means it locks you out of S ranks for him. So try to get this quickly. And he has a daughter. He names her Lucina. Yes, from Smash. Pay attention. Now, I might have mentioned this. If I didn't, I'm sorry, but the person who taught Martha to fight was her father. And she fights just like Crom. So, if Crom taught Lucina, whose daughter fights just like Crom, then that would mean that Martha's Lucina. But at that point, Martha shows up and reveals about some time travel shenanigans, and reveals that she is Lucina, Crom's daughter. And the name changes, and you can now use Lucina as often as you want. And I do. Often. She's actually pretty good. She's like Crom, but slightly weaker. Not much weaker, just slightly. And so, now comes the part where you can start getting other people who came from time travel. If your tactician gets hitched, you unlock another paralog, which is a sub-chapter which you can select as soon as they appear. Or you can leave them for later. But if you don't clear them in a certain amount of time, you'll be locked out of some paralogs. Like 2 or 3 of them. Every time a character gets hitched, apart from your protagonist, of course, or whoever marries Crom, you will unlock a paralog. Crom's marriage does not unlock a paralog. Everyone else getting married, apart from Crom, does unlock a paralog. One of them, unless whoever is tactician, you get 2 paralogs. Everyone has at least 1 kid, male or female. The tactician is the one that matters. If you chose male, you get a female male. if you might get a male child who will appear in the game because they went back in time for whatever reason, as well as Lucina did, and you can recruit them by creating the chapter that they appear in. Yeah, the game goes on for a while like that. And of course, I took the time to be lazy and get everyone hits so I get as many units as possible. I got every unit I could possibly get. Do the run. It went well. I never used any of the children except for Lucina because she doesn't not suck a unit. But this way you figure out that Robin did go back in time. Yeah, you're a tactician. You went back in time. Why? I don't know. I can't tell you why. Which is why there's two of them, and there's two Lucina. You play through the second in the. If you met Virion, he turns out he's the prince of another country. Go figure. And that country's under attack by, I think, Pelgian again. So if I'm Pelgian again, that turns stealthy real quick. So you take up the Pelgian army there, and learn something. Our tactician Robin is a giant dragon named Grima. You know the dragon Marth slayed back in Dark Dragon? Yeah, that dragon. Now, what I understand from that is that you're the dragon, you don't know you're the dragon, and you don't become the dragon. Okay? Your other self does. Which makes absolutely no logical sense, but plot holes. And this one doesn't get closed up at all. If you remember the opening cinematic where you attacked Crom, you do that again. Except this time, it's a little different. I won't spoil that. But you have to see it. I guarantee you, every cutscene in that game is great. Looks so good. I like watching cutscenes. It makes me feel a little more immersed into the game. The immersion is real. The immersion is real. So you continue on. Because you continue on. And now we reach the final chapter. This is probably the CF chapter, which, if you know what that stands for, good for you. It's Cancer Cluster. You know that, the second word. That type of chapter. For the CF chapter, multiple times. So, this is not the CF chapter at the start, but at the start, you're fighting on the back of the giant dragon. I sold this chapter I did this with Crom and the Tactician because they had the best support. And they were the only ones who could even damage the boss. The objective is to slay the boss. Enemies will continually spawn 8 or 16 per turn. 4 in the southwest, 4 in the southeast, 4 in the northeast, 4 in the northwest, and they will continually spawn and continue moving around. And they're max level, so if you're at max level, have fun. I brought in a full group of units. Crom was almost left standing at the end of that chapter. Everyone else fell in combat in that chapter. It's the end game. This is the final chapter. Nothing beyond this. This is the final chapter. So now we move on. We take on the final boss. There's one more decision to make. Either you do the final blow, or Crom does the final blow. If Crom does the final blow, the future is screwed. If you do the final blow, the future is saved. I decided to screw the future. Go me, right? I screwed the future. And I feel no regret. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I'm important. I don't want to die. You've done a bunch of choice, though. You'll die eventually. And if you want to see the future, you have to kill yourself. I don't know what's up with that, but that's my review. And that's the story. That gives that story a 10 out of 10. It's flawless. Flawless, I guarantee. There's a pothole here and there, but you can overlook them. And if there are any potholes that aren't covered up, well, that's something else entirely. So, now I want to do extra content. The paralogs have no bearing on the story, but you can get some interesting units that suck. One of them does, anyway. The characters are really fleshed out and really have their own personalities. No character is kind of Marcus from the older from 6-7, who shows no emotion and has no personality whatsoever. Every character in this game has personality. Crom's got personality. Liz's got personality. You've got personality. Frederick's got personality. Varian's got personality. Vike's got personality. Everyone has a personality. Everyone's got a personality. And you can see that apparent in the story. And if you don't get it in the story, you can get it in the support conversations. Now, in usual Fire Emblem games, you get 5 support conversations total. You can only have 5. This game got rid of that limit. You can have A ranks with everybody that they can support, and S rank with one of the opposing gender, because game logic dictates you can't have more than you can't marry one person. Polygamy is frowned upon apparently in the society that is Fire Emblem Awakening. And there is some romance, but I would ignore it because it's not important. You have to actually look for it to find it, but it is there. I know it's there. I've seen it. Because I maxed everyone's conversations. Everyone's. That's why I played the game more than once. 5 times. I played it maybe 10 or 12 times ago, support conversations, because male, female conversations are different. Go figure. And that's great. However, some support conversations are boring. And I skipped those. So, and I guess it falls on the mechanics. So, mechanic 8.0. There's room for improvement. So far, we're up to a max out of 30. Now, for something that's going to be 20 points. DLC. Now, there is some DLC. These are extra maps that give you more into... It's a dimensional game, so you meet characters from other Fire Emblem games. You've already picked up the weapons along the way if you stopped in those sparking spots on the map, but that's a mechanic that I'd rather not get too into because it's random. You can meet characters such as Lynn, or Roy, or Eddiewood, or Hector, or Erica, or Ephraim, you name it. There's lots of DLC, and it's great. So much nostalgia sitting in that one area. I've never played any of the maps, but I've seen other people play those maps. And that gets 20 out of 20. Great DLC. So let's see. Add up the numbers. This game gets a nice 47.5 out of a possible 50. That is an A. That's a 95. That's an A. This is a great game. If you haven't played it, I do recommend picking it up and giving it a try. Don't like it? That's fine. If you love it, great. You find another game that you love. This is a great game. I highly recommend picking it up. It's one of those games you just gotta play. So that's it for this video. My next video will probably be another LP or whatever I feel like uploading. After all, I end this more up here. That's it. Till next time.